Hello, hello, hello. It is me. I am by myself. Here I go again. On my own. Davian is stuck in traffic. So it's just me. And to be honest, just me is all we need. Right. So we're going to talk about She-Hulk. Let me begin by talking into the camera. She-Hulk, I am single. I am available. I probably have very little to offer you in terms of a relationship, but hey, I've seen far worse relationships last the test of time in real life, and people may be watching this and thinking, well, Manny, Duke, She-Hulk isn't real. Well, as she does in the comics, she quite clearly breaks the fourth wall often. So she's very much aware of every single one of us watching She-Hulk because she's communicating with every single one of us. But no, She-Hulk episode 1, a very, very fun episode of She-Hulk. Yeah, not very serious, granted. But to be honest, like She-Hulk in the comics, very rarely has been serious. Davey P has let the fans down. You're right, he has let the fans down. He's let me down. He's let down the entire Vayman universe. Could you please show your disgust in the comments? That'd be much appreciated. So yeah, it was just a lovely opening scene. As I said, She-Hulk's never been that serious in the comics. The entire purpose of She-Hulk, very much the second run, if we just discard the Savage She-Hulk run from the 1980s, or is it just fan? Well, no, it's up for debate, isn't it? If we just discard the Savage She-Hulk run from the 80s, which I've been rereading in preparation for this series, I think it's worth saying that, yeah, she's never been serious. I think the entire point of She-Hulk has always been there to poke fun at the Marvel universe, and I think the purpose of the She-Hulk series here is again going to be poking a bit of fun at the Marvel universe, but also as well through her role as a lawyer, just exposing kind of some of the silly things in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and just allowing us to kind of say, hold on, that doesn't make sense, and having her like address those things like, why are heroes just out to go around destroy everything? It's just mad. So yeah, I think She-Hulk will do all those things, and I think it'll be great. I just want to say as well that it was absolutely inspired casting by Disney and Marvel and Kevin Feige. All hail Kevin, to cast Tatiana Maslany as She-Hulk. If you haven't seen Orphan Black, I really recommend it. In Orphan Black, she plays a variety of different clones of herself, each one very distinctive from the other, to the extent where you forget that actually it's the same actress playing all these different clones. Sorry, 1 second. Just got a message from Davian. Let's see what he says.
Yeah, I'm literally 15 minutes away now from home. I don't know what the fuck's going on with all these traffic today.
God, he said a bad swear word. I apologize. Yeah, he's 15 minutes away. I might actually be done in 15 minutes. But yeah, like it was inspired casting by Tatiana Maslany. Yeah, she'll be able to play Jennifer. She'll be able to play She-Hulk, even though the two characters are very much the same persona. Just inspired. And if you haven't seen Orphan Black, I heartily recommend that you do watch Orphan Black. But I'm assuming you've all seen the episode, so I'm not going to go into it blow by blow. But I think the main talking point, there's two main talking points in all seriousness, or two big questions coming out of this episode. I think the first one is we see Bruce and Jennifer. A lot of traffic in Homerton. We give Davey the doubt. Well, true. Davey should have also checked the news and seen there was like a industrial strike taking place as well, which would inevitably lead to there being more cars on the road. So yeah, talking of road, we see Jennifer and Bruce driving along, having a nice little cousinly road trip. Love their banter, by the way. It's amazing. And a Sicarian ship basically flies in front of their car and causes them to crash. And you get this entire kind of thing of Bruce's blood infecting Jennifer's, which is how she becomes She-Hulk, which is fine. That's a little similar to how it happens in the comics. She's given a direct blood transfusion in the comics. So yeah, it's a little similar. And but why does the Sicarian ship actually, in the first place, come towards them? Obviously, the Sicarian ship is not aware of our highway code rules on planet Earth. But yeah, that happens, and car crashes. But why was the Sicarian ship there? Obviously, we know the Sicarian ship from Thor Ragnarok. We know that's where Thor was kind of doing a bit of his kind of Planet Hulk stuff, being a gladiator there. So why did the Sicarians need to deliver a message to Bruce Banner or the Hulk? My theory: Thor has a son named Scar in the comics, and I think they flew down simply to tell Bruce, look, you've got a son up there, and you probably owe money. Yes, there is a green shade on my face. It is it was done on purpose. Essentially trying to tell Bruce, look, you got a son. Your son's Hulk has a son. Yeah, Hulk has a son named Scar, and I think essentially Sicarian ship is coming and say, look, dude, you've got a son. Like, you might owe them money. Like, I think in America they call it alimony payments. You got to sort it out, man. You got to get back up there. Like, your son needs a dad, and you need to do something about that. You've just like abandoned your kid. That's my theory as to why the Incredible Hulk is being sought after by the Sicarians. That's my theory. Be interested to know other theories. It could just be the Grand Master just wanting to reclaim his best gladiator. Bruce to be a dad, they said. Exactly. So yeah, I'm going. If that's the case, man, I'm going for it 100%. This is going to be all about Scar. I don't think though this plot line is going to be resolved in this series. From what I understand, these scenes were actually meant to be played in roughly episode 7 or episode 8 of She-Hulk, but playing these episodes back to test audiences, the audiences felt as though the origin story should have been told earlier on. So I don't think this is going to be, for that reason, I can't see it. It's not going to be concluded within this series. I think essentially at some point towards the end of She-Hulk, we might get a cutaway scene where we see the Sicarians again contacting Bruce and saying, look, you've got a son, or the Grand Master wants to come and see you. And this may potentially set up a proper telling of the Planet Hulk story. I'm not sure whether Marvel, Disney fully have the rights to the Incredible Hulk now, but yeah, that's where I'm going, and I'll be interested to hear what other theories there are regarding that. Kamala Khan's father was not a good substitute. I mean, you could say he wasn't a good substitute, but hey, did he ever actually get the chance to prove himself as the Hulk? I mean, he never. Which actually makes me think as well, actually. I don't know why I just thought. I wonder if we saw Bruce Banner essentially managed to merge the Bruce Banner and the Hulk persona into one to create the Hulk we see right now. I wonder if maybe we could also be, if we're not going to end up in a Planet Hulk kind of story, if maybe we could end up in a kind of Incredible Hulk, Mr. Fix-It kind of story where, again, this Hulk is very similar to Mr. Fix-It, but it was a story in the 80s and the 90s, I think it was the 90s actually, where Hulk, had merged these kind of Bruce and Hulk personas, and he was just a really intelligent guy, and he by Hulk essentially, and he was called Mr. Fix-It because he used to fix things. He was like, he wouldn't just use brute strength anymore. This was a very kind of cerebral Hulk, it's fair to say. I think that's another direction they could go in, which I'd be very interested in. To offset that, though, Grey Hulk wasn't as strong as Green Hulk, which is only fair. Otherwise, you just got the ultimate kind of superhero, which makes no sense whatsoever. Right, so that's my theories on the Sicarians. Secondly, at the end of the episode, we see Titania bust into the courtroom to disrupt court proceedings, and it's not very clear what that's about. So we know She-Hulk herself is working for the district attorney's office, so she's working on the prosecution side on behalf of the city she's representing, or the state she's representing. So why did Titania infiltrate there and quite easily get her ass handed to her as well? Why would she have done that? Could it have just been for show, so that maybe the entire world sees Jennifer for being She-Hulk? That's a possibility. She was going up against a group of lawyers who seem to represent superheroes who may have, or supervillains who may have caused damage. Could be to discredit her to a certain degree. Like, look, how can she be prosecuting superheroes and supervillains when actually, or superpowered people, when actually she's superpowered herself? I think from the trailers, it's fair to say she actually switches sides and starts working for that law firm as well. So I think that's another possibility. I think Titania done that attack and was quite happy to be beaten, simply to show the world what the She-Hulk and who Jennifer Walters really is. Mr. Fix-It, gangster versus the Kingpin could be a good story. That would be a very good story. Even if it wasn't necessarily Fix-It directly against the Kingpin, it would be nice just to have Mr. Fix-It kind of like in that 18 episodes Daredevil series, just kind of being like a character who comes in for maybe 1 or 2 episodes to fix things on behalf of Daredevil. That would be very cool. So yeah, we know Titania is going to be more prominent in future episodes, looking at the trailers. So we know that Titania is going to be causing a lot more damage, and she has a bigger role to play in this series. To what extent? Not 100% sure, but we shall find out. We shall find out. What else was I going to get into? Oh, yes. Another thing I liked about this episode was these nice little nods, essentially, to Tony Stark. I love the fact that Tony Stark, in his own way, is all over this opening episode. We see his initials carved into the bar which Bruce has created for himself. We see Jennifer wearing a Led Zeppelin t-shirt, which we can only assume, and I'm quite confident in saying, probably belonged to Tony Stark, because as we see in the previous movies, Tony Stark loves a bit of classic rock. He loves a bit of Sabbath. He loves a bit of AC/DC. There's no reason why he wouldn't love a bit of Led Zeppelin. It makes perfect sense. So yeah, and we see that Tony Stark helped Bruce create this lab. I think it's wonderful that they're still tapping into that kind of phase 1 to 3 feeling, and Marvel knows that any kind of mention of Tony Stark will just get the heartstrings pulling on people. So yeah, 100% they should be leading into that. Like, people, when they die, they don't just disappear, and I think some shows are guilty of that. But yeah, it's good that you can still use that as something for characters to bounce off of emotionally. I was not sure of casting Jameela Jamil, but we'll see if my opinion changes. Kay, your little cousin has a bit of a crush on Jameela Jamil, so you're going to have words with him later. I think it'll be fine. I think she'll impress you, actually, in all honesty. I think she will. So yeah, I really like that, and I love the fact that we learn a bit more about what the Hulk was doing during the blip. That, you know, he was experimenting on himself. I mentioned it at the start of the stream. Love the banter between Bruce and Jennifer. It reminds me of the banter I have with my own cousins, which was very cool. Let's see how the MCU bulk her out. Titania, I'm sure they will. I'm sure she's going to end up being some kind of an agent, maybe for Roxanne Oil. I've got a feeling Roxanne Oil may feature in this series, and I've got a feeling that Titania may be being paid by Roxanne Oil potentially. We'll see. But yeah, Roxanne Oil basically. Well, they are. They're an oil, as you can imagine, an oil company, but they're quite a sinister oil company in the Marvel universe. And by introducing Roxanne Oil to She-Hulk, you could easily then have them play a part in Armor Wars as well, and maybe even Echo. You could have them play a part in. You could have them play a part in the Daredevil series coming up. There's lots of potential with Roxanne Oil if you do that properly. So yeah, there's a lot of things that could happen. We know that Daredevil's going to be in the series. We know that. So again, the connection is there. We know Frogman's going to be in the series. Who's got no real connection to Roxanne Oil, but he's just a cool character. Right. So yeah, the cousinly banter. I loved it. I loved the training montages between the Hulk and She-Hulk. They were amazing. I love the fact that Bruce is a bit jealous. Bruce is a little bit upset that Hulk can actually control her powers. She can keep her persona when she's She-Hulk. And that is cool. And I love the fact Bruce doesn't like that. Like, there's always a bit of rivalry between cousins and siblings, and that's there in abundance. And that relationship is shown wonderfully well. I love the fact they do the Hulk jumps, which we don't really see a lot of in the MCU, I don't think, but we saw that here. We saw the thunderclaps, which are very cool. Or She-Hulk kind of does multiple thunderclaps, which again was very cool within itself. So yeah, So yeah, it was a thoroughly nice, tidy, very fun opening episode. Is there anything? Is there anything I could? Is there anything wrong? Are there any negatives I can find from this episode? You know, so I can't think of any negatives because of the kind of what's the term I'm looking for? Because of the space it occupies of it being quite fun, it would have been wrong to have made it too serious at this point. And as I said earlier, She-Hulk has never been about being serious, so that's definitely not something which I think should happen in this series. I mean, if you get there naturally or progressively, it could happen. One serious thing that could happen is that so we see some of her colleagues. Now we see her best friend in the show is called Nikki. I'll go on to that. We see there's a paper. Her best friend is called Nikki. In volume 1 of the She-Hulk, She-Hulk does have a friend named Jill, who works for the law firm, which She-Hulk works for, and Jill dies whilst they're targeting She-Hulk. So it is worth kind of wondering, well, is that Nikki character set up to die? I think that's another thing that's worth considering. Is that could she die at a certain moment to suddenly turn the show on its head and make it a very serious exposure of She-Hulk, and actually make her come out of her shell, make it suddenly not funny, and actually give her a proper reason to kick ass. And maybe even a motivating factor as to why she leaves the DEA's office, and maybe switches sides, maybe, which is another possibility. So yeah, I'm calling it here. I'm going to say I think Nikki's going to die. I think don't get too attached to this Nikki character in She-Hulk. I think she could well bite the bullet. In the 70s or 80s, Titania did a pay-per-view showdown with The Thing. I do remember that comic, actually. I think that was when, so in the 80s it was actually, Cake, I believe, because pro wrestling was such a huge thing in the 80s. I mean, it's huge now, but I mean, it was in the mainstream properly in the 80s. They really leaned into that, and they had, like, the Marvel Universe had its own kind of wrestling promotion. And Titania was in the wrestling promotion. The Thing was in the wrestling promotion. I'll try and find out who else was as well. I do remember these. I think the other Miss Marvel, who ends up being Thing's girlfriend, ends up in that wrestling promotion. Okay, I'm just looking it up. That was it. Unlimited Class Wrestling Federation. So yeah, so essentially a federation where super powered humans could essentially wrestle each other, and they were just leading into that huge success which Hulk Hogan and the WWF at the time were having before the Ultimate Wrestling Saga. Wow, I'm gonna have to look that up. I'll look it up on the Marvel Unlimited app. So you're saying this was something before even Unlimited Class Wrestling. Okay, I'm gonna have to look that up. I'm assuming the Thing won. Like it's okay to spoil it. But I'm assuming Benjamin Grimm won. Okay. So yeah, a fabulous episode. And I think what this episode leaves as well, there's a lot potentially going forward. I think we are definitely going to see the next stage of the Thunderbolts being created. I'm expecting Val to come in within the next 3 episodes. I think this is going to be very law firm based. Unfortunately, the writers did say, "Well, it's quite a law firm thing, but we haven't actually had any experience writing trials before," which doesn't fill me with a lot of hope. But fingers crossed, they'll come out well. So yeah, I think Thunderbolts. We're going to see Val. We're going to see a Sicarian ship come in at some point as well, telling Hulk that, look, you've got a kid. Thing did win. No, good. Speaking of which, myself and Mr. Cato, going totally off subject. We attended just on a whim. We ended up in Hackney Wick on Thursday and attended a wrestling event there. Totally random, and witnessed my first ever live intergender wrestling match. I'm not sure I'm entirely comfortable with it. It was entertaining, but yeah. Titania hung around with the Absorbing Man. Yeah, now the Absorbing Man was referenced, or his first name was referenced in the original Daredevil Netflix series. But whether Daredevil is canon within this universe or not, it remains to be seen. But yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Could we see the Absorbing Man coming up? Yeah, Carl Crusher Creed, sorry. So in the Netflix series of Daredevil, we do find out that Daredevil's dad had a boxing match with Carl Crusher Creed, who is the Absorbing Man. Could we also see the Wrecking Crew making a little bit of a debut in She-Hulk as well? There was one still from a trailer I saw, which I thought could be the Wrecking Crew, but having a closer look, I'm not so sure. But the Wrecking Crew were what they says on the tin. They were just super strong super villains who used to like beating stuff up. So yeah, okay. So let's go through all of our predictions. We've got Sicarians saying, Hulk, you got a kid. Go and be a good dad. Don't be a deadbeat dad. I'm predicting that Titania is going to actually. I'm finishing up, by the way. I'm predicting Titania is going to be working for either Roxxon Oil or the law firm. I am also predicting that the Absorbing Man and the Wrecking Crew are going to make a debut. I think else I predicted. I'm going to park my Mr. Fix-It Grey Hulk theory for the time being. I don't think that's real. I've said it, so if it does happen, I'm going to take credit for it. Right. David, it's nice of you to join us 1 hour and 20 minutes later. With your workload. And I can't hear you.
Yes.
I can hear you, but your microphone's very low.
It's very low.
Yeah.
I'll turn up the volume on that. Is it up now?
Yeah. That's better.
Okay. Much better. Yes. Apologies, folks. You know, a little work-related issues and running and traffic and all sorts going on today. But yes, I thoroughly enjoyed She-Hulk. I actually thought it was one of the best series so far. Granted, I had one little issue with it, and it's the way she became She-Hulk. I mean, in the animated series, if I'm
Anyway, only joking, carry on.
In the animated series, dude, didn't she like meet in an accident and he gave like a blood transfusion?
Maybe, and I've told you before, the animated series is not what we should be using as source material. The comics is what we use as source material.
So in the comics,
she meets with Bruce, and basically she's representing a gangster who turned snitch, basically. on another gang, and the gang shoots her. And Bruce at the time is on the run from the authorities, so he has to. He can't just take Jennifer. He's trying to find a hospital, can't find one, and he finds some kind of abandoned like GP or veterinarian office. I can't remember which one, and basically does a direct blood transfusion because she's losing so much blood from having been shot. Does a direct blood transfusion from his body to her body, thus giving her Hulk powers, which is pretty much what happens here.
Except it says that they both cut their arms and his blood went into hers.
Yeah, that's how a transfusion works.
Well, yeah, but you'd think it would be... That's the only thing I had the issues. They could have actually just done it that way, rather than just say, cut my hand and your blood just spill in mine spill in yours.
Well, if you actually hear for the start of the episode, I do talk about how that introduction was quite important because it introduces the Sicarians back into the fold and possibly reignites the World War Hulk story or Planet Hulk. No, Planet Hulk story, the World War Hulk story.
Or do you think this has to do with the scrolls? You think that's what this is?
No, I don't think it's the Skrulls. There was definitely a Sicarian ship. So yeah, I think this was a nice way of doing it without the blood transfusion. I think, as I was saying at the start, they're trying to keep this very lighthearted, the same way Volume 2 of She-Hulk and Beyond is very lighthearted. If you read the She-Hulk comics, Volume 1 is not very good for She-Hulk in the 80s. It's mid. It's mid, to say the least. Where She-Hulk kind of finds its feet is when they redo it in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, and from the Savage She-Hulk, it becomes a sensational She-Hulk. And it becomes a lot more of a fun comic. And the entire purpose of the comic is to poke fun at the Marvel Universe and to say, well, this bit doesn't quite make sense. That's a bit silly, isn't it? And She-Hulk will constantly break the fourth wall just to expose actually how absurd, being a superhero can be. And I think that's going to be the purpose of this show moving forward.
No, I mean, I like that concept. Like, literally just by the way it started when she's like talking to us, I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? So that was actually pretty cool. And again, just to show how, just like with anything, how evolution makes things a lot easier in some cases. I mean, it took Hulk like 15 years, Bruce Banner, in order for him to actually be able to get his consciousness in the Hulk's body, whereas for her, it was just like the norm.
And I think that can be explained as well because Bruce received a full gamma blast of the nuclear explosion, whereas She-Hulk, Jennifer, just receives a few drops of blood.
Yeah, diluted version.
Yeah, so exactly. So it's a diluted version of what Bruce received. And because they got the same DNA, actually, now you mention it, that was another point I was going to make. The writers have said we are going to see a lot more Banner's family. So I think we're going to see lots of aunts and uncles, maybe their parents. They mentioned the cousin Ched as well. So I don't know who this cousin Ched is. I can't reference him in the Marvel Universe, but he could be a thing. And in the comics, Jen also has an auntie named Cassandra Pike, who I think is some kind of weird evil scientist type character. So be prepared.
So what about in this version now, in the MCU? What are they going to do? What's the story with Bruce's father? I mean, are we supposed to disregard the whole Eric Banner Hulk situation with his dad, evil kill his dad, blah, blah, blah?
That's a very good question. And this is a conversation I have with Mr. Cato often. Like, what is canon and what canon? To be honest, they reckon the Edward Norton movie is canon. I'm not sure it is because I don't think the Eric Banner version is. I don't know. I don't think Kevin Feige knows either. Do we not want to see which version of which Hulk movies are canon and which ones aren't?
I mean, they could take some of the things. I mean, what I thought really worked well from the Eric Banner Hulk movie was the concept of how he was able to transform in Hulk based on the fact that his dad was doing all that to himself. which basically kind of modify his genetics in the sense that when he got his wife pregnant, his DNA had kind of already been altered, so it made sense that it kind of altered Bruce's gene. So therefore, when he was exposed to it, you could see it makes sense that that could happen because he had already had that in him. That was already in his genetics. So I think they could use something like that to explain it, because it would make sense, because everything else where it says if you're exposed to gamma, it would technically kill you. So the only way you can rationally explain it is that way. If they were to use something along those lines, like his dad was, especially if you're now saying that there's an aunt in the family, maybe you could say that the dad and the aunt was doing that. The aunt was doing that with the dad. That's how it started and whatnot. And, for whatever reason, and then just carry on that way.
Potentially, I mean, we're going to be. It still looks like we are going to be exploring the family tree a lot more. There's even a few pictures in the background. It seemed like of a family dinner, so anything's possible. I'm typing into Google like, is Ed Norton's Hulk canon? Like, there's just people disagreeing with each other. Some people saying, "Oh, yes, it definitely is," and other people like, "No, it's not." It's like, for me, the MCU's always begun at Iron Man, and that's it. Okay.
Yeah, I think maybe
Okay. According to Mr. Cato, who I always trust firmly, he says Eric Banner. He means Banner. He means Eric Banner. This Eric Banner is not canon. Edward Norton is canon.
Oh.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to rethink the way I look at things. And Ed Norton's movie is the first MCU movie, so we can't. So Eric Banner's version of events doesn't actually count in terms of canon. All right, let me ask you a few questions about She-Hulk as you're here. What did you think of the casting of Tatiana Maslany?
I thought it was great. I thought it was really good. The whole, I mean, so far from what we've seen of the cast and everything, I mean, it makes it a lot more easier, and I think it makes it more realistic now, especially if someone wants to have their day-to-day life, that people know exactly what's going on, especially in her field of work, being a lawyer. You have to be very transparent with your whole background. So therefore, you can't have any secret coming out, "Oh yeah, I'm Hulk," or this or that 5 years down the line after you've been tried many cases, because then people would start saying, how do we know you really won and you didn't intimidate, the jury or blah, blah, blah. So it's good that it's all out from the get-go. So therefore there's no fallback in terms of that. So I thought that was actually really good. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see more of the interaction with the cast, so we can actually see, what the connections is, and if there's any hidden gems that we don't know about, anything else going on. But I thought it was really good, the fact that they basically made the first episode focused a lot on her training per se, and the fact of how she was just picking up on everything so quickly. And that was basically kind of making him, as much as he's in control of his consciousness, there's still the Hulk in him that gets like jealous about certain things or whatever, and it just comes out, like when he pushes her off the cliff. I don't think that was
I was saying actually that's not so much the Hulk. This is sibling rivalry. Competition between your siblings.
You're cutting out.
It's a sibling rivalry, that kind of cousinly rivalry.
Well, rival. I don't know if I would call it much of a rivalry, considering his intellect is way, way, way more advanced than hers.
Yeah, but it's not about the intellect. It's about, he's just really jealous that, oh my God, she can. I go through all this stress and pain being the Hulk, and you've got in one day, you've got like 75% less.
10 years of my training and
struggles. And she doesn't have to go through all that. And I think that's just like cousins always sometimes are pitted against each other as well, in terms of who'd be more successful and stuff like that.
Well, we know he's more successful. I mean, he's Bruce Banner. You've muted yourself. You've muted. Yeah, okay, yeah. The Duke is having some technical issues. For some reason, he's muted himself. But yeah, okay, you've unmuted yourself now.
Carry on.
Yeah, I guess it's a friendly rivalry in the sense of like cousins, but not actual real rivalry because his intellect. I think the only real rivalry he would have would be with like a Tony Stark, who's as intelligent as him, or maybe a Reed Richards. But in terms of her, like she's not on his level. I think her rivalry would probably be more with Daredevil.
Yeah, but this is the thing though. This is sibling rivalry. It's not rivalry in terms of your academic.
Yeah.
This is like two cousins, like a brother and sister base. It's the same as a brother and sister, just basically having.
He's a lot older than her, isn't he?
Yeah, and you can see that he does have that kind of big brotherly affection towards her. But we've all got. I've got a sibling in the comments right now. It's you still have that bit of rivalry. You still want to be better than them at stuff, don't you?
Yeah, that's the thing. Well, yeah. Speaking as an older brother, you're speaking as a younger brother. Yeah, it's true. You are always trying to state your claim to the throne that we have sat upon.
I don't want any throne. It's too much hassle.
Yeah, that's the thing. Heavy is the head that weareth the crown, and you have to have a big ass head or a forehead to wear certain.
That's why I'm a Republican and not a monarchist.
To wear a certain crown.
Sorry, Dowdy's just coming out of the knowledge here. Remember, Tony Stark was in the end credit part in Northern Film, wasn't he? I haven't seen that movie in like 12 years.
Yeah, I haven't seen that in forever.
Okay.
All I can remember is how badass Abomination was.
Last year, I did actually rewatch. Of course it is, because Abomination's... Yes, of course it's canon, because Abomination features as well. I rewatched all of the Marvel movies last year, like in chronological order, and I didn't watch the Hulk. So maybe I should do it again, but watch the Hulk this time as well.
Yeah, because then chronological order would be the Hulk would be first, then, wouldn't it?
Yeah, sure. No, well, Captain America, #1, technically.
Was that before Hulk?
Well, not in terms of release date, but that took place in 1940.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Hell DF Cater, yes, indeed. Thanks, Kay. You're welcome. I'll show the comments in my own time. Thank you very much. God, I'm trying to keep the flow of the show going. See, this is a sibling rivalry we're talking about. My brother trying to tell me how to host my own show.
That's what big brothers do, isn't it? Get in there. Get in there and tell you stuff.
So yeah. Are there any other comments you want to make about She-Hulk? Because I'm hungry and it's my dinner time.
I really, again, like I said, I really enjoyed it, how it's done. And I hope they keep up the same tempo with it in terms of with the story and the flow of things, how it's going, because I think it's actually really good. I mean, one thing you can see, I think Bruce is actually going through his own identity crisis, trying to deal with the losses of what's happened in Avengers. Just like what happened with Thor, how he went through that whole phase of just didn't know, Fat Thor, all of that, their struggles and all of that. I think now we're seeing him deal with all the struggles, the reality of what's actually happened, which is why he's kind of like build his own little paradise away, where it's kind of like secluded itself away from everyone else. So I think that's actually interesting to see how he's going to deal with things going forward and whatnot. And just what other techniques he'll show her. Like, I mean, everyone loved the fact that he showed her the Hulk slap, the shockwave,
thunderclap.
Yep, that was just awesome. What if he's gonna do the whole where he puts like the, like the cards or whatever on his fist? Will he teach her that next? That will be cool. But I'm looking forward to the next episodes.
Sure.
Hopefully they'll have more end credits.
There's going to be apparently end credits all the way from episode 1 to episode 4, from what I've been from what I've read. You can see She-Hulk dancing in the living room, dancing to Dancing Queen by ABBA. I mean, if she's doing that, I don't want to date her anymore.
Yeah, right. Saying that right now, but you'll be the first one around there with ABBA CDs and everything.
No,
I could see you rocking them stiletto heels there like Bjorn.
No, I'm not. I'm not simping for anybody. She-Hulk could be an ABBA fan. She could be. I like to think she's got kind of harder tasting music.
Hey! Don't ever disrespect the ABBA fan club. Yeah,
what are you gonna do about it? What are you gonna do about it?
Hey, I'll call my guys. Yeah, ABBA fans unite. Yeah, we're like the Captain Planeteers. Yeah, let our powers combine. You don't want that smoke. So, ABBA Sunday
probably wouldn't even notice the smoke. In all honesty, it was a bit weird. Stark was an alcoholic in the comics, but the MCU he builds a. I mean, that is an interesting. That is an interesting point. Maybe in the MCU, he was actually really good functioning alcoholic, and we never actually, his actual alcoholism is actually never diagnosed.
It's true, because look at it. Remember when he first met Natasha, he was drinking. He was at the bar at his party. It was at a party.
I think it was always something which they kind of alluded to.
Yeah, when he was giving the big speech to Loki, he was behind the bar while he was there putting on the new armor on it. So he's always, no matter what the situation, the world is about to implode, gotta have a drink and give a nice little speech, but you make it seem like it's more about the speech as opposed to the drink. So yeah, he's a smart alky.
Yeah, so but I don't think, probably I imagine at the time, Disney were like, yeah, we're not touching that issue of a barge pole. You can allude to it, but we're not actually going to address it directly.
Yeah, little Easter eggs. You just look back and see all those different scenarios. When
you can also see Davey P dancing to Dancing Queen. Why would you want to see that?
Yeah, does your mother know? That's more my jam right there.
You can also see Davey P singing "Gimme, Gimme, Gimme" and "Man After Midnight." I mean, I'm sure he has sung that plenty of times.
12. Yep, we have.
Don't do that again. Don't do that again.
Don't worry, I'll give you a call. I'll video call you and sing it for you.
I'll just won't take the call.
Important call.
Yeah, I imagine Davey sung that quite a lot. He's like Tony Stark though. He won't actually like publicly like address his needs. Like Tony Stark has a need for alcohol. Davey has a need for a man after midnight.
Hey, I have a need for them ABBA music. That listen, I weren't afraid to say I went and bought that ABBA greatest hits in Woolworths back when we were going to school for $12.99.
Good for you.
Save up for that.
Good for you. Anyway, this is an ABBA stream. There is a possibility I might not be able to do next week's stream.
Or just choose it on a day that you can do it then, isn't it? Maybe
there's a possibility that I might be busy all these days.
Even the day when it comes out?
Yeah, I've got quite a... David, I'm a social butterfly.
Oh, yeah.
He's
a real dancing queen right here.
I'm always out and about doing stuff. So there is a possibility that you might be the lead the helm, or try and get you a co-host from somewhere.
Yeah, if not, I can hold the fort down. They don't call me Davey P for nothing.
It's to be honest, I'm sure you probably could just talk and talk. But yeah, hopefully I'll be there. Right. If there's nothing else to say, I'm going to call this session to an end.
Yep, and it has been fun. Apologies for the lateness, folks. It was work and traffic.
Yeah, and we're not being paid for your advertising either, so don't wear that shirt again.
I had to just get on the stream as quickly as possible.
I might have to blur that out, actually.
It's too late. The world has seen it already. All 5,000 views.
Like Hulk says, Spandex is your best friend to all ABBA fans. Indeed. Spandex is indeed your best friend. Right, say goodbye to everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.